And we are live, and today we're going to be doing a book discussion, a book review over the soul of a man under socialism. And I'm going to allow Alicia to go first because you have the quickest notes.
Okay, so I've written up an opening statement to introduce the audience to, well, kind of summarize Oscar Wilde's The Soul of Man under Socialism. When one sits down and reads this book, one may glean the hidden message behind it all, and that is the utter torment and pain of being an intelligent man or woman in an unintelligent world. The man's soul is crushed by the tyranny of the masses, which Wilde states over and over again. To quote, the mob is a monster, and the people's authority, which to him is the tyranny over a man's soul and body,
Oh,
is
you're breaking up.
better. Am I still breaking up?
Oh, no, you're not breaking up anymore.
Okay, so the mass is hideous, grotesque, tragic, amusing, serious, and most importantly, obscene. And this control over the individual is exemplified in democracy, which to Wilde simply means the bludgeoning of the people, by the people, for the people. Oscar Wilde also has limited vision and only sees two types of men. One is a real man, the other is a beast. The real man is a scientist, a poet, a philosopher, while the beast is the beast of burden with no grace, no culture, no refinement, and one that cannot nor wants to enjoy in the pleasures of life. But to Wilde's credit, unlike most socialists and communists, he does want to absolve man of the beast. His solution is simple. Any job of labor should be done by machine slaves so that every man can become a man and simply be. But Wilde, like all socialists and communists alike, acknowledges that the family unit as we know it must end because, in the most abstract way, it is the ultimate in private property. And man, if he is to be free, cannot be a slave to the burden that is the family. Now, that's his thoughts, not mine. And that's all
Uh,
I have.
do you think that his personal life being in the closets, do you think his personal life perhaps shaped that his attitude towards marriage and viewing it as enslavement? Maybe he didn't actually want to be with his wife, for example.
Well, I thought about that a lot, and I think in this case, actually, no, because it's a common theme with men that want to lift society out of the rut that they see. Karl Marx did the same thing, and he was definitely not gay. We know that he had the female lover that he had an illegitimate child for. I think it's that in the most basic of terms, it's more about him being a man. And the role of a man is to have a child and take care of that child. And so it feels, even though he was gay, it feels more like it's a man burden thing, especially back then when it's the norm to have as many children as possible and to financially support them.
Okay, so one of the things that I think you mentioned, you said that you wanted to talk about was he says socialism would relieve us from that sordid necessity of living for others, which in the present condition of things presses so hardly upon almost everybody. You had something to add on to that?
Oh, yes, I mean, right there, that summarizes it's actually like the burden of life, right? How can one person truly create, truly go out and truly be free if they're bogged down by the necessities of life? I mean, you have to make food, you have to pay rent, you have to pay taxes, you have to wipe up the messes that the children make, you have to make sure that you're a good lover, make sure you're a good partner. And so I think in a way, he is accurate in that responsibilities do make it hard to be truly free. But that sets the stage, doesn't it? It sets the stage for why so many people go down the darker road of socialism, because they start feeling resentful for having to do these things.
Okay. One of my highlights is the majority of people spoil their lives by an unhealthy and exaggerated altruism, or forced indeed to spoil them. They find themselves surrounded by hideous poverty, by hideous ugliness, by hideous starvation. Do you have any thoughts on that, or um,
That's a true statement. I mean, just I think he said it perfectly in that one statement.
yeah, yeah. I guess we could both agree with that. Let's see. The people who do the most harm are the people who try to do the most good. I think that's true. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's for example, when it comes to the left, I do think that many people who are intersectional feminists, who believe that Black people are owed reparations for slavery, I believe that they are in a I do believe that they're coming from a very good spot. I honestly believe that, especially from talking to them. I do believe that they really are trying to make a positive impact upon the world. However, I just think that reparations for slavery is unrealistic. Hello, are you still there?
Yeah, yeah. So every time I think of the road is paved, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think of the little snap turtles. Baby turtles have to go into the ocean, and the birds like to feed off of these little turtles, and so one little turtle will stick their little head out, and if it gets bitten, then the other little turtles know to keep their heads in their shells. Well, one day a bunch of teenagers were watching, and they felt really sorry for these little turtles waiting to go to the sea, and so the kids, with good intentions, shoot away all of the birds. And then so all of the turtles, all hundreds and thousands of them, are like, oh, it's safe now. So they all popped up their heads and started walking. And what happened next? It was a feeding frenzy of the birds. And many turtles died instead of just one or two because of these children's good intentions. And I think maybe that's what it is. It's not necessarily the good intentions that cause harm, it's good intentions without knowledge to back it up.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, upon the other hand, socialism itself will be of value simply because it will lead to individualism, which is a very unique thought. I never heard of that thought before. Socialism, communism, or whatever one chooses to call it, I'm definitely against communism. By converting private property into public wealth and substituting cooperation for competition. And he seems like he's for competition with this sentence, substituting cooperation for competition. And I never heard I never thought that a person who is for communism could also be for competition. That's interesting. Will restore society to its proper condition of a thoroughly healthy organism and ensure the material well-being of each member of the community. It will, in fact, give life its proper basis in its proper environments, but for the full development of life to its highest mode of perfection, something more is needed. And I thought that was really interesting.
I gave it more thought when we read over that, and I think what he means by competition is competition of the mind and not of producing or the body. I think in context of everything that he thought and believed, competition when you're writing, that's, obviously his world. He would bounce ideas back and forth off of, fellow authors, and that really would make the brain have to work harder. So that makes sense. It's sad that I'm sure if he now saw what socialism leads to, he would be shocked by it. But his heart's clearly in the right place. But again, he had no way of knowing that it would become just a totalitarian state, the one that he wanted to escape from.
Well, I mean, when it comes to it's nice to think about competition of the mind, but I mean, other forms of competition could be pleasurable, like who could run it the fastest, who could play chess the greatest. I guess that is still competition of mind, but again, there is still sports competition of the body. There's that. Because as humans, we do love to compete with each other, and to me, that is what makes capitalism the best system. It's because people do love to compete. The problem is neoliberalism. Anyway, I'll continue. Upon the other hand, there are a great many people who, having no private property of their own and being always on the brink of sheer starvation, are compelled to do the work of beasts of burden, to do work that is quite uncongenial to them and to which they are forced by the peremptory, unreasonable, degrading tyranny of wants. These are the poor, and amongst them are there are no graces of manner, no charm of speech, or civilization, or culture, or refinement in pleasures or joy of life. From their collection, from their collective force, humanity gains much in material prosperity, but it is only the material results that it gains, and the man who is poor is in himself absolutely of no importance. And I could understand where he's coming from. I mean, especially since wasn't he a rich man, or didn't he come from a well-off family?
He made a lot of money on his writing.
Yes, so I mean, he
But he
probably
also didn't he go in debt? I don't know. I know that he was very extravagant. He's confusing socialism with a socialiteism. He was definitely a socialite.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Hello, everyone.
hello, Carlos.
Carlos,
It's
was he rich? Do you know if he was born into a rich family?
I have no idea, to be honest, but it's easy to look up.
Yeah.
yeah,
Him
yeah,
was that he liked to spend a lot of money.
yeah. I
And
think that he probably socializing with a lot of people. He probably was around people who didn't think much of the poor. But I mean, from reading the picture of Dorian Gray, I do think that's even when people are writing fiction, they do put some of themselves in fiction. And which is why I wanted to read his other work. I did wonder how much of himself did he put into his fictional writing, because I mean, I think he written somewhere. I forgot where. Um, I think it was Intentions. I'm not sure, but he did writes about socializing with the poor and hanging out with the poor. In fact, that actually was also in the picture of Dorian Gray, where Dorian Gray was rich, but where he met Sybil Vane, he was hanging around the poor area in the poor section of like London or whatever. So
Because he was buying prostitutes, male prostitutes. That's why he socialized
Yeah.
with the poor. Otherwise, he didn't socialize with them. It says here that he was born into a relatively wealthy family.
Hmm.
I mean, his father had 2 houses in one estate, so that would make sense. Why? Yeah,
He's very much like what the current trend of Starbucks communists are.
yeah,
Starbucks communists, yeah. They come from the middle upper class, middle and upper class families who
yeah.
are quite well off, and they play romanticizing the propertyless masses. At that time, it was applicable. Property was actually property, but now in today, property is possessions, your whole everything. So yeah, that's the sort of context that I saw from what I read. I didn't read it all because he's repetitive. Basically, just describes what he basically introduces at the start of the essay, quote unquote. I know it's a book type thing, but it's still an essay to me. So yeah.
Yeah, he was very repetitive between in the middle section for sure, for sure.
yeah, that was also my problem with the essay. He was a bit repetitive. I mean, it actually could have been shorter, to be honest.
He
Um,
gave too many examples, basically, or
Yeah,
many enforcing points. Yeah.
yeah. All
yeah.
right.
The virtues of the poor may be readily admitted, um, which that's that part right there. It does make me think. It does make me think of intersectional feminists. I do think that there are modern day people that think like this. Like, oh yeah, like poor equals good. Okay, I'll continue. And are much to be regretted. We are often told that the poor are grateful for charity. Some of them are, no doubts, but the best amongst the poor are never grateful. They are ungrateful, discontented, disobedient, and rebellious. They are right to be so. Charity they feel to be ridiculously inadequate mode of partial restitution or a sentimental dole, usually accompanied by some important attempts on the parts of the sentimentalist to tyrannize over their private lives. Why should they be grateful for the crumbs that fall upon the rich man's table? They should be seated at board at the beginning to know it.
Again, it's a description of the noble savage. Basically, at that time there was just Darwinism was beginning to come into notice, more or less at that time, late 19th century. And yes, there was this obvious guilt of the people who were well off, who were middle class, basically, who had enough to buy their food, and he's putting they should be seated at the board. At that time, there was no social mobility. You could not get rich, but applying it today, you can. You just work hard,
You know,
basically. Yeah.
I think that modern day feminists also think like that, to be
Oh yes,
honest.
yeah,
I mean, they
absolutely.
definitely think that way because I mean some of them, especially the well-off ones that's what do you call them? Champagne socialists, the rich
Yes,
people who
champagne socialists, Starbucks commies. What else? For the UK viewers, Chelsea Marxists, basically. Yeah. it always comes from people who are well off. You don't see what he's describing. We haven't gotten to the part which is good, of them not happy, rebellious, etc. Yeah, they are rebellious to get better conditions, but they work for their conditions. At that time, they couldn't even vote. The poor people in that time, the males couldn't vote. Their vote came with the female vote in the late after 1918 in nearly every country. So of course, but yeah, they were exploited, obviously, and but they had to be exploited. That's how you can't skip parts. Sargon talked about it in a lecture he did in Dublin perfectly of what you have to go through, and that's what the he at that time and today the social justice warriors are trying to deny people earning getting a job and earning. If the more you raise and you raise a condition, for example, the pay, the less they are employed. So basically, yes.
When it comes to Champagne socialism, I think it's because some of them probably have inheritance. Like some of them, they didn't have to work hard to get to where they were. Like they probably, because even ContraPoints to regurgitate these points, because I do think that they lived a life where they probably didn't have to work that hard to get where they are. They probably have parents that are well off, parents that make money. And then if you have parents that could just pay for you to go to college, and then you have somebody who's working really, really hard, and they're just not really getting anywhere, no matter how much work they put into it, you probably would feel a bit of guilt, because it's like, well, I have an inheritance. And when it comes to this college, my parents went to that college, and there is like this legacy thing going on, where because my parents went to this college, I was a shoo-in, and other people are trying so hard, yet they're still poor. I mean, well, probably not poor, but they're still not as well off. So there is, I mean, there is still, I guess, a feeling of guilt because of what they've inherited. They just never had to experience that Darwinism of just trying your best and being the best because you tried the hardest. You worked the hardest.
Oh yes, absolutely. You see that in academics. You see that in artists a lot. Many of them have forgotten their roots. Eminem's a classical case. He grew up very, very poor. He got his break. Now he's super rich. He forgets how hard he had to work at before. So no, but they don't give up their money. They ask other people to give their money away and their property, etc. None of them. Go on, Modwain, please answer. Yes.
That's because what a lot of people seem to fail to realize is that what socialism was trying to create a new elite. And they did so by pretending they are to help the worker. But all socialists ever done is create a new elite. And the old elite, whether it was the feudal system or whether it was capitalism or in feminism, patriarchy, the old elite is bad and they are the new elite and they are good. They will work for the worker, where the old elite is only exploiting the worker. Reality be damned, but that's all it is. They only try to portray themselves as, look at how good I am for you. It's virtue signaling is a term that we use nowadays, but that's all it is. socialism is nothing else but virtue signaling. But please vote for me because I have your best interest. Don't worry about the fact that I will get paid and you will not, because there isn't a socialistic system out there in the world where the leaders aren't rich. But that's all there is to it.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
So it's just, socialism is just trying, it's nothing for the workers. It's just trying to create a new leadership class, and the socialists consider themselves the new leaders.
But when it comes to people like Oscar Wilde, people who do seem to feel some sort of guilt because of, I guess, inheritance, I wonder if they have like a question in their head. How do I know that's like, and when it comes to tying this into Darwinism, because, I've seen Oscar Wilde mention Darwinism here and there. I wonder if he questions, how do I know that I am the best there is if I have inheritance? How do I know that I'm actually am the best if everybody doesn't start off with equal footing and then the best just arises?
But isn't that just basically a different form of survival guilt?
It's also arrogance.
Well, that too. But it's trying to create an excuse for his own situation. And he's feeling guilty. But why am I so rich? Well, you're so rich because your parents did well. Yeah, but am I doing well? No, you're not. But then start working at it. Don't look for excuses or someone else to, empower you or embolden you or claim you're the best thing in the world. Work for it. And then let people decide for themselves whether they think you're worth it or not. But you're not to blame for the inheritance your parents left you. You should be grateful.
Exactly. From the passage you have highlighted here, Rin, where it says, why should they be grateful for the crumbs that fall from the rich man's table? That is the classical positioning of the socialists. They don't want to create wealth for the poor. They just want to bring down the rich.
Yeah.
And
the rich need to feel guilty for being rich.
Rich, exactly. And why not say, look, poor people, here are the conditions. We will, in fact, Henry Ford was the first one basically to break the quote-unquote mold when he paid his workers more than all his competitors, or more than was national policy at the time, because he said, look, his idea was, look, if I pay them a bit more, they'll buy my cars.
Yeah, and that's what capitalism is all about.
It's all
capitalism
about, exactly.
Needs a healthy market.
Yes.
If the market isn't healthy, capitalism will fail. That's why socialism keeps failing and capitalism keeps succeeding.
Exactly. And at the moment, the West is being a bit too much socialistic. And you see that there is a diminishing percentage of people that, with their taxes, feed the system.
Yeah, because...
Margaret Thatcher said it perfectly. Socialism works until other people's money runs out.
Yeah. Until you run out of other people's money.
It's money, basically. Yeah, sort of paraphrasing. Exactly.
Yeah, but that's the thing, and I have yet to find any socialistic paper, even this one. Well, this is an old one. Thank you for pointing it out to me, Rin. It's
yes.
Really, but I have to find any paper where the people advocating for socialism are not trying to establish a new elite class.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what they're still doing. But they are now pretending it's the worker that's going to be the elite class. Never mind the fact that there are too many workers, so the workers will need a few people to help them set them straight, which is great in what was the book Animal
Farm.
Animal Farm. Thank you. All animals are created equal. All workers are created equal. But some are more equal
than others, exactly.
Well, yeah, because as humans, we form natural hierarchies because there's always going to be a person who's stronger. There's always going to be a person who's smarter, wiser. There's always
Yeah,
going
but
to.
that's not allowed under socialism. Because under socialism, you have to all be equal, unless, of
Mhm.
course, you are the ones running the show, because those are a little bit more equal than the rest. But you're not supposed to be stronger or smarter. You're supposed to do what you're told.
If you guys haven't seen it, I recommend you guys watch Sargon Talking, the Dublin thing he did. It's on his either the Thinkery or Sargon of Akkad. Well, I don't know which one of
Yeah,
those. Okay.
yeah, it was a good
It
one.
was brilliant. It summarized, and there are a lot of points there that I was thinking about as I read parts of most of the book. Well, not all of it. I didn't read it all. This book, because like we know that it's repetitive. When I saw three examples succeeding each other, we're basically saying one would have been enough. Then, so yes, they want to level at the lowest common denominator, but there's no a socialism should be. If it was a workable, if it was working, why not have the highest common denominator? Why not have people striving to be equal at the top instead of at the bottom?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Yes. No, they want the least amount, and human nature doesn't work that way. Why should no one, no matter how much you program them to, um, does not want? Humans are greedy by nature. The only way that socialism works is if you go back to hunter-gathering societies.
And then it only works because everyone has to compete.
Not has to compete, has to survive. They can't compete
and work
against.
together.
Work together, exactly.
I mean, it's all good and well if you want to make a commune. Yeah, a small group of people can create a small commune, and a commune can be communistic or socialistic because that group will protect itself. But the larger that group becomes, the more impossible it gets, because someone needs to keep an eye on how things are being done, and therefore someone will become the new elite.
Yes, exactly. Shall we continue, Rin?
Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I think we've settled that. Yeah, I think. But sorry about that, Modwain. You continue to talk, man. I apologize.
No. You're right. Let's continue. Rin did want to not waste too much time. And we are repeating our points.
Yes.
Sure. Disobedience in the eyes of anyone who has read history is man's original virtue. It is through disobedience that progress has been made, through disobedience and through rebellion. Sometimes the poor are praised for being thrifty. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, the poor were praised for being thrifty at that time because in religious, especially Christian religion, yes, thrift is positive. Yeah.
I mean,
close.
Sorry, go on.
No, you were going to say.
Even in our current societies, if we look in the West, a lot of countries are lamenting their youth because they are lacking a workers' ethos. But we see, for example, in Europe, that people coming from countries like Poland and Hungary have a very strong work ethos. And this is why these people are so popular to come and work in different countries. Whereas the local youth has a hard time finding a job because they don't want to work. So this is another thing that socialism does. It destroys workers' ethos.
Mm-hmm.
Something that people should be proud of. He has a strong drive to function well as a worker. This is a positive thing. Yet we make it sound like it's a negative thing.
Yeah, I agree that being thrifty is a good thing. Being thrifty is not a bad thing at all. And like more people should learn how to be wise with their money. Slavery was put down in America not in consequence of any action on the parts of the slaves or even any expressed desire on the parts that slaves should be free. It was put down entirely through grossly illegal conduct of certain agitators in Boston and elsewhere who were not slaves themselves, nor owners of slaves, nor had anything to do with the question, really.
That's basically not true. Slavery in America was stopped because slavery in Europe was stopped, and the European powers that be felt that they would actively go against slavery wherever they found it, and America was finding it harder to get slaves. And within America, you already had people like humanists and Jesuit Christians that wanted to end slavery well before. So this is a misrepresentation of history, which is a bit difficult to say because this is written in history, and yet still he's closer to what it really was, and we know what he just said isn't true. Slavery in America didn't end because a few people in Boston were against slavery. The movement to end slavery in America was way older than that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. He basically, yes, and I can't think of anything else to add.
Yeah.
That's correct.
No, I had explained that to Ren before, that his misunderstanding is quite a lot, but that probably stems from the fact that he did a tour in America, right, and went all the way to California. So I'm sure everything that he heard was just secondhand garbage and propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
Because ending slavery was a long, hard battle that started well before anybody in Boston spoke up. So
the abolishment of slavery actually started 300 after Christ, when at the Council of Nicaea, the Christian bishops came together and voted on whether they should keep slavery legal or not. This is in the year 300. Mm-hmm. So claiming that this happened because of Boston, I'm sorry, but then you really don't know the history of things.
Yeah.
So he's simply wrong on this. There is no different way of saying this.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the history of Nicaea. Never heard of it.
That's where
the Council of Nicaea is where the Bible got put together, basically, and where the bishops voted on what should be doctrine in Christianity and what should be forgotten.
Was presided by the Emperor Constantine, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yes. This is there were several saints, modern day saints, like for example Saint Nicholas, made names in those times. Saint Nicholas, Saint Martin, people we still remember to this day. And these people were already very powerful movers when it came to ending slavery. This is what the Jesuit Christian movement, this is why the Jesuit Christian movement also was basically trying to push the idea of ending slavery, even though the Bible agreed that it was allowed.
Yeah,
we're talking about more than 1800 years ago.
Well,
300 AD.
Portugal did start the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah, but that's something else.
And the Jesuits were Spanish and Portuguese. Was a Spanish and Portuguese invention, basically.
Yeah.
I agree with you, absolutely. I'm just giving some.
Slavery was already there. Because the Portuguese started the international, the Atlantic slave trade.
We started just an Atlantic trade, but there was slavery.
Slave trade already.
By the Christians and by the Muslims.
By the Christians, by the Muslims, by the Jews, by the Zulus, by the Khoi.
Yes, but the main, because the Portuguese started, they didn't go out and capture slaves.
No,
they just arrived at a port, and the locals would say, look, we have these, do you want to buy these? And I said, okay. That's basically what happened. It's not with the, so let's get on with it. We just established the context, yes.
For the recognition of private property has really harmed individualism. I totally disagree with him. Derek?
Oh, yes, yes. That's what I was gonna. This part, I love this part. Keep reading. We can discuss this. This is where all the meat is.
Okay, and obscure it by confusing a man with what he possesses. It has led individualism entirely astray. It has made gain, not growth, its aim, so that man doubts that the important thing was to have, and did not know that the important thing is to be. The true perfection of man lies not with what man has, but what man is. Private property has crushed true individualism, and I think he's terribly wrong. And what is also surprising is that 335 people highlighted this. That's interesting as well.
Exactly. When he read this, I think I'm not sure the exact date of when Das Kapital and Communist Manifesto was released by Marx and Engels in late 19th century. Obviously, he didn't. This is so wrong. He totally misunderstands what socialism is. Socialism is the crushing of individualism.
Yeah.
Basically, and he said, but again, he uses property again, a property owner, landowners. That was the property, but an individual is what he is by what he also possesses. That is different from another person. If no one has property, how can they be individuals? Basically, yeah.
That's true.
He does contradict himself, because there is another part, and it's almost like, I think it's like half a paragraph or so down, where he says that the individual actually did come from owning private property. Like that.
Yes.
The birth of it was because man got to own private property. Therefore, it gave birth to individualism. But now the next evolution must be, to give everybody individualism is to have no property. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's going from one characteristic to another. They're basically pigeonholing people.
And the worst. I'm sorry.
No, exactly. I was finished. Not finished.
The worst part is he's actually trying to claim that private property is individuality shaping, which is partly true, but lack of private property is also shaping individuality.
Yes.
That's the whole thing about individuality. You become who you are because the situation you are in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Should I continue?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Man being naturally ambitious makes it his aim to accumulate his property and goes on wealthy and tediously accumulating it long after he has got far more than he wants or can use or enjoy or perhaps even know of. He seems to be feeling lots of guilt. He has so much money that he doesn't even know what to do with it all. I mean, I guess use it on the prostitutes because it's like, I got so much money. What do I do with it?
Well, in his time, homosexuality was a crime, and I mean a really bad crime. And he got prosecuted for that. He didn't get he didn't get castrated like Turing did, but yes, it was bad. He went to jail. So basically, yes,
Yeah. 2 years hard labor, right?
Exactly, yeah. He basically saying, man, being naturally ambitious. And how can you take that away from man? That's taking away his individuality. And the person whose individuality has degrees of ambition. Some of them are, most of them, in fact, are more than a person can handle. In fact, I may have ambition that I cannot ever pursue or conquer or whatever. but I still have ambition. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having more than you have or more than you even know?
Yeah, there's
Come on,
nothing
Rick.
wrong with being ambitious. I mean, like PewDiePie and Philip DeFranco wouldn't have gotten to where they are right now if they weren't ambitious. I mean, I don't think ambition should be used as an insult. To me, ambition is much more like a compliment. I mean,
Okay.
to me, it's great to be ambitious. It's healthy.
Yeah,
There's
but
nothing wrong with wanting what you want and trying to go get it.
But here's the funny thing, though. If we look at where lies the combination of Darwinism and this piece, it lies right here. Because there's a reason why men are ambitious. And that reason is survival.
yes.
And not recognizing that is the biggest mistake he made. Because he tries to bring in how ambition is cause of this or reason of that. No, ambition is the one driving evolutionary factor of humanity.
Hmm.
It's what pushes us forward.
And that's what the modern socialists are doing. I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos and articles of people criticizing certain university professors, saying, "Oh, ambition is sexist, homophobic, whatever. The problematic shit. Hard work is bad. Um, merit is bad. Those type of things. They're trying to eliminate ambition." But it's impossible because it is hardwired into us.
Yeah, they say that ambition is like a product of white supremacy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Except that they don't know that the Asians, for example, I mean, all Asians, not just the Southeast Asians, South and Eastern Asians, those areas, China, Koreas, right down to the Indonesias and that, they are hard-working people. They are ambitious. So how can it be if they're saying white supremacists, then basically half the world's populations are white supremacists?
They even call like Asians white supremacists. I mean, they
Yeah,
even call black people white supremacists. And I mean, only one time, I got called a white supremacist once. And I was thinking, you must be joking. I cannot believe that somebody unironically called me a white supremacist.
I call him Kanye West white supremacist.
But that's the thing. People like this, people like Oscar Wilde is portraying himself to be in this article, are basically saying everything is based on identity. And identity is based on some rudimentary thoughts that we have. And all of a sudden, everyone needs to fit in that identity. And as soon as someone doesn't fit in that identity, he automatically must be the enemy. This is what we're seeing happening right now with the whole controversy around Kanye West. I think the dude's an idiot, but all of a sudden, people are either lambasting him or calling him great because he came out to be in favor of President Trump, which doesn't change anything for me, but somehow it changes a lot for people who are against Trump because all of a sudden they are losing an icon figure. To them, they actually lost Kanye West. Dude's still alive. He's still making music, but to them, they lost him. He doesn't fit into their identity anymore.
No, it doesn't. No.
And 4chan is calling him like our boy, our guy. 4chan has been embracing Keanu West.
Which still doesn't make any sense according to
No,
me.
because can you go on.
No, I'm just repeating my point, I guess.
Just to finish this off about Kanye West, I don't take much of what he says. I take what he says not at face value or anything. He's making some good points, But then he ruins it with saying slavery is a state of mind in his last thing.
But
I'm
even going to give him credit for that, because
he said it badly, basically.
because he's Kanye West.
Exactly. The passage before this, the passage before this, Rin, the one we were reading before about the slavery in Boston and that made me that said, shit, Kanye West got that idea from this, basically. He didn't, but I could see the analogies. And when he said, the people, the slaves didn't actually start it, they didn't even want that sort of thing. Seriously. No, it's totally wrong. He got that wrong. But it's Candace Owens that I'm. Her past still doesn't allow me to completely take her too much credibility. Her past is still, she still hasn't redeemed herself, in my opinion. But she's getting there. She's getting there. If she
she'll get there as soon as she apologize, or not apologize, but recognizes why she was wrong with her social autopsy thing and actually pulls the plug on that. As soon as she does that, she's redeemed for all I care.
Me too.
Every single time people bring it up, she's going to go into the defense. As soon as she's defending, that means she still stands behind the whole concept of social autopsy.
Yeah.
If she continues to stand behind the concept of social autopsy, she can be a conservative as much as she wants to be. I still don't trust her.
Exactly.
I don't trust her either, but we're getting off the topic. We're getting way off topic.
Exactly. We finished it there. Perfect.
This one I find is really interesting because 287 people highlighted this. So we're going to read it too. With the abolition of private property, then we shall have true, beautiful, healthy individualism. Nobody will waste his life in accumulating things and the symbols for things. One will live. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist. That is all. 287.
Who wants to start? This is excellent. Go on. Someone, please. You guys obviously see the hole in this thought. I hope you.
I mean, this basically is saying if you want to live, you shouldn't want to accumulate. But at the same time, this is why I said earlier the whole reason for to get stuff is to survive. It's purely biologically driven.
I see it differently in this passage.
I need to get back to it. Let me get back to it.
Yes, please, Rin. Okay.
Maybe I'm missing it then.
He says, not the first part. The first part just fluff. No one will waste their life accumulating things. Okay, that's important. With symbols of things, one will live. To live is the rarest form. Okay, if you don't work, no one works. How will you survive? Who's going to produce the food? Who's going to deliver the food to your place? Who's going to your medicine? Who's going those sort of things? Do you just live? How do you live without anything?
Exactly. And besides, don't people enjoy accumulating things? Or don't people naturally enjoy accumulating things? Like think about being a shopaholic and wanting to buy the newest computer, wanting to buy the newest cell phone, wanting to buy the newest Kindle device, wanting to buy the nice shoes. I mean, people had to make that stuff. And unfortunately, some of our clothes comes from child labor in Bangladesh. The diamonds are like blood diamonds in Africa. Or a wig. Some girl in India just cuts her hair off for a ritual, and some business guy exploited a little girl for money. Because when I was watching a documentary called Good Hair, basically girls chop off their hair for some ritual. A business guy collects it, and he says that an Indian girl's long hair is more valuable than gold. And the reason why it's more valuable than gold is because a wig or hair extensions in America that could be like $287. So
No,
it's hair extensions can be very valuable.
Well, I
well,
think from his point of view is if you picture him in your head, he liked to travel, and his consumption was like food and culture and things like that. And so that's what he thinks people need to spend their money on, not on trinkets or couches or things like that, but that they should be traveling and moving. And he thinks that the robots will take care of everything, which, okay, I'll have a robot that does all my hard work.
Do you know who was getting quite rich at that period of time? It wasn't the landowners. It wasn't the factory owners. Do you know who was getting rich at that time?
the bank.
The actors.
No, not even the bankers. Most of them, the intermediaries, the ones that would buy the produce and then deliver it to the sellers, the traders, the ones that would come to all over the world, pick up a few paintings, a few meters of cloth, and going back to England, the Europe, and selling it there. They were the rich people. The other ones were established rich. They were not getting richer. They were just establishing. The landowners the same. Some of the landowners would get rich by being the traders that would finance these voyages and these intermediaries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're correct. The traders.
So, well, the point that you said, Rin, about the exploiting a child labor in Bangladesh or wherever, Europe went through that. 150 years through that, since the middle of, or basically 1750, when the Industrial Revolution came, until the 20th century. Basically, we had about 200 years of that happening in Europe. So the countries that are doing it now, the Southeast Asia and Asia, they have just started, 40 years ago. They have caught up. They are evolving in that sense much quicker than Europe did. In about China, since the Cultural Revolution in the 50s to now, what they are is what France and England and Portugal and America did in about 150 years. So yes, it's natural. It's a natural process. And next, I think if anyone doesn't have anything to add, we can continue.
For what are called criminals nowadays are not criminals at all. Oh my goodness, that rhetoric is being repeated today. I mean, for watching like This Week in Stupid with Sarikhan, that exact same line is being repeated to this very day. Anyway, I'll continue. Starvation and not sin is the parents of modern crime. That's indeed is the reason why our criminals are, as a class, absolutely uninteresting from any psychological points of view. They are not marvelous, Machiavellists, and terrible. I don't know how to pronounce that. Voltrons. They are merely what's ordinary, respectful, commonplace people would be if they had not got enough to eat. And I would agree that if you're not, I would agree that if you are starving, you would steal food, because you're not just going to starve to death. If you're starving, you would want to stop starving, so you would steal bread so that you could continue to live on, because starving is a really terrible experience to go through.
Well, yes, that was a huge problem in his time. That time, yes, and now it's happening in developing countries. They are going through that exact phase. Yes.
There's an old saying in Germany: "Eerst das Essen, dann das Moral." First, we make sure we have food, then we consider morality of things. Funny enough, again, this is coming back to Darwinism and the reason why men want to accumulate. Because first the food, then we talk about morals. And this is completely going counter that.
Should I continue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is mentally and morally interest to man to do anything in which he does not find pleasure. I heavily disagree with that. Me and Alicia disagreed with that earlier, but I mean, the way I view it's in a more modern context. I mean, who would want to be a dumpster truck driver? I mean, who would want to be a fisherman? Sure, some people would want that job. I'm pretty sure that some people would want to work in the sewers, but not many people. I mean, pretty much everybody would want to work a glamorous job. So many people would want to be a singer. So many people would want to be an actor, a dancer, a poet. I mean, but people have to work those jobs. There needs to be somebody who works in the sewers. There's got to be somebody who is a um, dumpster truck driver. There's got to be somebody who does the jobs that nobody wants to do. There's got to be somebody to be the janitor. Nobody wants to do that job. That's why janitors get paid. It's because nobody wants to do it. Who would want to pick up somebody else's vomit? Who would want to, like if you're a janitor and somebody, overflowed the toilets and got shits all over the place, who would want to get gloves and pick that shits up and throw it in a trash can? Nobody wants to do those jobs, but those people are important because they do the jobs that nobody else wants to do. And if nobody do those jobs, our lives would be inconvenienced, So I disagree with him when he says it's just mentally and morally interested in man to do anything which he does not find pleasure. I'm sorry, but you got to do the things that you don't take pleasure of. I mean, there are people who do not want to take care of who don't want to take care of their kids. But you would think that people should want to take care of their kids, but there are people who really don't want to take care of their kids. So I'm sorry, but sometimes you're gonna do the things that you just don't want to do. And I'll continue. I'll stop ranting. And many forms of labor are quite pleasureless activities and should be regarded as such.
And I think it's important to bring up that I did not agree with Rin on this point. I know many people that do enjoy dirty jobs because there's a special fulfillment when they get it cleaned. It's almost like instant gratification. Also, Oscar Wilde, in this little thing he wrote up, he did address it. He said that any labor job would go to the robots. He doesn't use the term robot, he uses machine, but I mean, it's the same now where, okay, so then we'll have a robot clean the bathroom, or we'll have the robot till the soil. We'll have a robot drive the dump trucks and things like that. But I know a lot of farmers, I know a lot of janitors that truly do enjoy their work. And I don't want anyone to think that I would want to take that away from them, that they do a good job and they enjoy their work and they feel proud of it. They get pride from it. So
yeah, but
I'm just saying, wait a minute. I am sure that there are going to be people who take pride in their work. I'm just saying that how many it is the numbers game. It does come right down to numbers. Like how many people would actually do it if there was no money involved?
But it's even worse than that. It is mentally and morally injurious to man to do anything in which he does not find pleasure. How many of us find pleasure in cleaning our house? How many of us find pleasure in changing the diaper of our kids? How many of us find pleasure in having to wash our car? But we still do it because we do find value in it. Pleasure and value are not the same. We do certain things because we know they need to be done, not because we
Yeah.
enjoy doing them.
He's all about the pleasure. He really is.
Basically,
Yes.
what this is one line of, hey, look at me, how entitled can I get?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's to me delusional and unrealistic because, again, it's a numbers game. Sure, there's going to be somebody who enjoys being a janitor. There may be like 10 or 20, maybe 50 people who enjoy being a janitor, but I would imagine it's not all that many people. Like when you compare the number of people who are janitors and
So
the people who
I just want to disagree again. The people that I know and that I hang in circles with, they actually do enjoy it. There's a sense of accomplishment. So we're doing the same thing that he's doing. He assumes only men will be happy if they only do pleasurable things. So then if you think that is not intelligent to say, the inverse is also not an intelligent thing to say, because there are genuinely a lot of people that genuinely enjoy doing dirty work. I know a lot of nurses that they enjoy, like they change diapers for old people. Now, the actual act itself isn't enjoyable, but what they're feeling joy because they're keeping that person clean, and that's what they're feeding off of. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes,
I
yes.
don't want to like, I feel like it's insulting to people that do enjoy doing that kind of work if we're going to say, oh, there's only 5 or 10 of them, because, they really do enjoy it, and we don't want them to feel weird because they're not alone in their feelings of enjoyment with these dirty jobs.
Well, actually, I read an article not that long ago because I did a video on it in my response video to Roaming Millennial. And when I searched it, and the article said that 86% of people do not enjoy their jobs.
That's usually because of their bosses, though, and the people they work with. And I would say that 80% is coming from people that the job that most people do right now is like phone work and things like that. So I don't think it has to do with, you're comparing apples to oranges with, the same way that Oscar Wilde is. I mean, what he's missing is that if you were to live his lifestyle, there would be some men that would go batshit crazy living his lifestyle because they would not enjoy it. They would not enjoy having to travel all across the United States drinking champagne and screwing young boys all the time because it would get old. It's kind of like how you outgrow video games. Video games are great fun, but eventually, could you imagine if that's all that you did is just indulge in your video games? You would stop liking it.
I mean, I do think that Oscar Wilde probably lived a fun life. I mean, traveling all over and screwing people. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, but
Well,
I'm going
you're gonna
to respond to that one because things might sound like a lot of fun. What is the most pleasurable thing that you like to eat?
Yeah,
The
pizza.
most pleasurable thing is pizza. Okay,
Yes.
What if all you would have to eat for the coming, let's say, 10 months will be pizza?
Yuck.
Yeah,
It'd become painful.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
You need
It would
highs,
become
you
painful.
need lows. You need positive things, you need negative.
Yeah.
But what he is saying is the negative things, the mental and moral injuries to man to do anything, he does not find pleasure. We sometimes do things we don't enjoy to do, but we do them because we know it helps the people we love or it helps our own personal situation. This is basically a funny dichotomy of working in healthcare or working as a aid worker or whatever. People deem to think it's a noble thing to do. But in all fairness, we do it because we like the end result. It's a selfish thing to do. There is no help given that is not inherently selfish as well. even though
Yeah.
if
Yes.
it's only because it makes us feel better. We do negative things to help other people, and that will make us feel better. But the negative thing we do in itself is not enjoyable. But we do it anyway because it's part of who we are. It's part of what we feel is important. And I'm sorry, but this is how entitled can I be? I
He's
don't want to
basically
do anything I don't like.
projecting his repulsions for work and activities that are. He said it when he caroused the lower class areas for the male prostitutes. He hated the sights, the smells, the feelings, everything of that.
Yeah, then why the hell are
Obviously,
you there?
because that's the only way. That's the only place where you could get sexual satisfaction. As I said, homosexuality was a crime, a big crime, almost about the same as in the modern Islamic world. Except that you
Indeed,
didn't
indeed.
get put to death, but you did get bad punishments and so on. And just to answer the food, I would eat bacon every day of the year, but only bacon mixed with other stuff, of course.
Mixed with
Now,
other stuff.
continue. Let's go.
Yeah, up to the present, man has been, to a certain extent, the slave of machinery, and there is something tragic in the fact that as soon as man had invented a machine to do his work, he began to starve. This, however, is, of course, the result of our property system and our system of competition. One man owns a machine which does the work of 500 men. 500 men are, in consequence, thrown out of employment and having nowhere to do, become hungry and take to thieving. And I do think we see the same thing in modern day America because you they self checkout, for example, like stores like Walmart and other stores having self checkouts and then getting rid of all the not all of their workers, but getting rid of their workers for machines. And I do think it sucks when people lose their source of income in place for machines. But that also is a consequence of people asking for more money, because if you are asking for, to getting paid like $15 an hour or $20 an hour to work at Walmart or whatever, eventually like self checkouts will be much more cheaper than a person. Like, why have a person if a machine is going to be cheaper?
Where do you see those happening, Rin? By the way, you see those where it's the democratic, socialistic places where they have minimum wages and so on. All those benefits that the business people can't afford to do. So what do? They automate. He basically says just a bit that we should be humans should be getting only their pleasures. Let machines do the work. And then he goes on saying, yeah, but now a machine does work for 500 men. 500 men will be out of employment and they will starve. You can't have both. How will, like I said before, how will you feed people if no person works? Basically, what's he saying here? Exactly. That's what
And
you're seeing.
the funny thing is, in all fairness, Ford proved him wrong.
Yes, he did. Exactly. If you don't have a minimum wage, you do the market will establish the wage. We have the problem here in my little local area. We have we have 3 restaurants, hotel restaurants. They have so much problem getting workers here because they only pay them the minimum wage for 14, 15-hour work shifts. Right? Now, if there was no minimum wage, then they would say, "Oh shit, we have to pay them more because they won't work," and they still don't work even for the minimum wage. So it's a catch-22, basically. Yes. Anyway.
Yeah. This is also to do with work ethos, by the way, because a lot of people decided not to work for minimum wage because sitting home and feeding off of welfare is easier and it only pays a little less.
Exactly. So
welfare is the death knell of every society out there.
Yep.
History has proven this time again. Welfare is a death knell.
Yeah, like I said before, the people who are contributing taxes for all these programs are diminishing. They're getting smaller. There's less and less of them. There's going to be a time when there won't be any more money left. Look at Venezuela. I'm looking at you, Venezuela.
Looking at Venezuela, indeed.
Human slavery is wrong, insecure, and demoralizing. And I highlighted that because didn't he live in 1888? I just thought it was great that he thought that way from his time period. That's cool.
It was only 15, 20 years after the last Western place got rid of slavery, the United States. I think Brazil was a year or two earlier. No, it was quite earlier because it was in 1820s. So the United States in 1860s, mid-60s. So he was only 20 years from the abolishing of slavery in the Western world.
Yeah, so living in that time period, for him to think that slavery is wrong and insecure and demoralizing, I thought that it was great. And I kind of had a feeling that he would think this way because when reading the picture of Dorian Gray, he did include Black people, and he didn't portray Black people in a negative light. He just briefly mentioned them. He just mentioned Black people smiling and beating on their drums. And so I just thought, the fact that he even considered to write about Black people and portray them in a very human light instead of portraying them in a negative light. I think that he would. I don't know what type of person Oscar Wilde would be in a present day sense. I guess it would be like a Groucham, I suppose.
What?
Groucham is a YouTuber. He's in your Discord server. I was mentioning how Oscar Wilde would fit in a present day sense.
Well, in all fairness, either he would have smartened up, or he would go very well with the social justice warrior crowd.
Well, he seems to be for individualism, so I don't think he would have been a social justice warrior.
But he can't be for individualism and for this. Those things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah, he would have been with the Hollywood crowd, and that's where he would have been. It all caught up with the Hollywood crowd, and yeah, I think that's where he would have found his place. I'm sure he enjoyed going to California. I mean, that's when Hollywood was picking steam. So I would have.
Sorry.
No, I'm just that's where he would be. Hollywood for sure.
I think he would be getting an honorary mention in the Me Too movement right after Weinstein.
Yeah, yes. But with boys. With boys.
Exactly.
We got to remember he only liked the boys, not the girls.
Yeah.
Well, that in itself is not a problem, though.
No, it's not a problem. It's probably why he pushed for individualism so much, because of the fact that he himself is denied his own individualism. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think he understood the difference between socialism and individualism. And it would be interesting to see, because if, like now, right? So being gay is fine. It's not illegal. You can get married. So I think that he would eventually fall into the collective mentality in today's modern time, even though he's quite a literary genius. He's
Yes.
very intelligent, but a lot of intelligent people have fallen into the trap of collectivism. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I would say. I think the only reason he was pushing individualism is because he was gay and he was denied the right to be gay.
But at the same time, he is all for individualism, but he wants people to be socialist.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't, it's kind of a, I don't know, a 1984 moment, right? Where you got the double think holding two completely conflicting ideas at once.
Yeah.
Okay. A map of the world that does not include Utopia is not worth even glancing at, for it leaves us one country at which humanity is always landing, and when humanity lands there, it looks out and seeing a better country sets sail. Progress is the realization of utopias with 141 highlighters. Wow.
Yes, there's so much to say about that. Utopias are as they are. Utopias, it can never be achieved. Never.
Yeah.
So,
Utopia, no
basically.
such place.
Progress is the realization of utopias. He probably he might have fits in with a progressive crowd. I mean, I would imagine that the 141 people who highlighted this were all progressives.
He's not Stephen Fry, because Stephen Fry is not that progressive, quote unquote. I'm trying to think about a modern equivalent of what he would look like. Maybe Patrick Stewart, maybe. Sir Patrick Stewart, I should say.
No.
No?
No.
No, you're right. It'll come to me
He-
anyway.
He sounds an intellectual.
Yes, he
But
is.
he
Well,
is
he was
so
an intellectual, yes, but
Well, yeah, he was, but he's so full of doublespeak. And back in the days, he could get away with it because not a lot of people would notice this. But in a time with the information highway as we have it now, people can't get away with this sort of doublespeak.
this was when Marx had basically published his two most famous books, Das Kapital and Manifesto. So it's
Yeah.
fresh. It's fresh. It's still idealistic. It was nothing. It would take what 30, 20 something years, 30 years. I don't know when this was written. I can't be bothered to look.
It was 1891.
Exactly.
He wrote
19,
it in 1891, and
20 years.
Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto 1848. So
Yeah, it's still
that's
fresh.
40. Yeah, it's still fresh because you got to think of how long it would take for the book to pick up a little bit of steam.
Exactly. And the Soviet Revolution was in 1917. It's close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Close.
but a lot of the things that were happening, for example, Marx, the bourgeoisie, the Bolshevik revolution, they only had a few people who actually spoke out. So they pushed forward their idea, and the average person either went against it or followed along. Those were the two options you had.
In Russia, you had only the like what basically the communist thing is. You had the super rich and the super poor. It didn't happen in Western affluent countries where you had multiple layers of classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then communism and socialism basically creates two classes: the ruling class and the rest of the rabble.
Yeah.
So yeah, you
But
know what the ruling class are.
Most people will figure this out if they were given the time to think about it.
Mhm.
Most people didn't have the information. So, for example, if we read this, back in the time, this was a good piece.
Yes,
Nowadays, we see plot holes as big as the Empire State Building.
because we have the element of foresight, of looking back, of course. Exactly, yes, because there was nothing.
There's more to it than having the element of that we can look back. But we now can see a lot of things where he's contradicting himself. A lot of people at that time might not have realized, might not have recognized this. Because a lot of people didn't read the whole thing because they didn't get the whole thing.
Exactly. No, that's correct. This was a very niche market that he wrote for. His other works are for the rest. Dorian Gray was brilliant and for a vast audience, but this is very niche. This was basically for his selected friends and relatives and a small group, basically. Because I didn't know about this. I knew Oscar Wilde, but I had absolutely no idea this existed at all.
Same here. I didn't know either.
Yeah, after reading the picture of Dorian Gray, I wanted to read Oscar Wilde's other works because the picture of Dorian Gray, it still is a masterpiece. It still is a masterpiece. So I just wanted to read his other works. So I went to Wikipedia, and I did go to Wikipedia. I just wanted to just see what else he's written, and I bought it from Amazon. It was free though. It was free. So I mean.
Oh yeah, I like I told you, I got it from the Gutenberg, Google Gutenberg project. So basically the same thing. It's free.
Yeah. It's free.
Yeah. We have been able to have fine poetry in England because the public do not read it and consequently do not influence it. I absolutely agree with this, and I do think that this probably also perhaps it's true in modern times too, like the courts of public opinion, kind of like how social justice warriors probably do not like what you have to say and therefore tries to get it banned or tries to make it politically correct. But if you could just say what you want, just speak freely, it could be better. For example, many people are addicted to anime, for example, but the Japanese do not have the exact same restrictions that American has. For example, a Christian may get involved and they would be mad at anime like Devils and Realist, or what's it, Kuroshiji, or what's another one? Okay, or I know the devil is a part-timer. If we still lived in the Bush era, we would be banned from seeing any of that because with the devil is a part-timer, the devil was a pretty cool, chill dude. Or when it comes to devils and realists, the demons were like really cool, amazing people, and the angels were psychotic. So the Bush era, the Christians, they would hate it, but also intersectional feminists would hate it because would hate anime in general because in anime occasionally there's going to be the girls with G-size boobs where the boobs are just ridiculously huge and bouncy, and the girls wear itty-bitty mini skirts and panty shots. Intersectional feminists don't like it either. So but it's also what makes it great. What's taboo in America is not taboo in Japan. So it's like, oh my goodness, your eyes are glued to the screen because you can't believe what you're watching.
Yes, but poetry was read more than he admits to it here. And books. He was a best-selling author in his time.
Definitely.
So he's being a bit passive-aggressive. No, not passive-aggressive. What's that word for it? When you I do that a lot.
Self-flagellating.
Not that extreme, but lowering of my worth, lowering of my worth, devaluing himself. I think that
Yeah.
could be basically, yeah. Yep.
No country produces such badly written fiction, such tedious common work in the novel form, such silly vulgar plays as England. It must necessarily be so. The popular standard is of such a character that no artist can get to it. It is at once too easy and too difficult to be a popular novelist. Temperance would have to write not for the artistic joy of writing, but for the amusements of half-educated people, and so would have to suppress his individualism, forgets his culture. Forgetting his culture, we see this in modern day time. I mean, you see it in America and Europe where you can't embrace your culture or you're xenophobic, annihilate his style and surrender everything that's valuable to him.
He has never read anything that was not written in English. This because in giving you example of Portuguese literature, we have a very select geniuses, brilliant people like him, of his ilk, and sometimes even greater than him. We have Fernando Pessoa, who, in my opinion, he was a poet, playwright. He's in many ways better than Oscar Wilde, in many ways. And then you have the 98% of Portuguese literature, which Jesus is atrocious. So yes, he basically is very protected. He has not read nothing that is not English.
I'm not entirely sure of that because in the picture of Dorian Gray, there was a section where he was writing in French the whole time. So evidently he can read French.
Yeah, but French is basically an extension of English at that period of time. They were the two,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
German, and German, and
And
German.
what
Those
about
were
Russian authors? Like there's so many great Russian authors that
exactly, and he
and they
doesn't.
were under a mass amounts of pain and anguish and yeah, so he's just I think right here he's just being a snob
No,
and
he is saying that England produces the worst. Yes, they were brilliant. He's saying
yeah,
that yes, but he's saying no. England are the worst. Apart from me and a few. She's wrong. There were so many brilliant
yeah,
British publications. I had
yeah,
the pleasure to read. But he doesn't. He said no. We are the worst. No, every country has the worst, but he just has that small niche of the greats.
yeah,
And the common rabble poetry that you could get a glimpse of in 1984, the two
yeah.
divisional thing, with
A
vulgar
lot of authors.
and crap that
Yeah.
was that period of time. Obviously, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of snobs in the author world. That's why I stopped hanging out with authors. Because we're all snobby little bitches. So
Mhm.
But
there you go.
So,
Sorry. Continue on.
yep, I think so.
They degraded classics into odorities. They used them as bulgeons for preventing the free expression of beauty in new forms. They are always asking a writer why he does not write like somebody else, or a painter why he does not paint like somebody else. Um, a fresh
Ooh,
mode of beauty is absolutely distasteful to them, and whenever it appears, they get so angry and so bewildered that they always use two stupid expressions. One is that work of art is grossly intelligible, or another that the work of art is grossly immoral.
oh,
isn't
he
this
doesn't like
this
his critics.
but isn't this describing what he himself is doing when he talks about why we should have socialism?
Exactly, but he's describing his critics. That they
Hmm.
degrade the classics with authority. They prevent free expression of beauty. His own version of beauty. Beauty is subjective.
Yeah,
Uh,
but
yeah, but
when
and
I think when I think about that, I think about social justice warriors and how they don't like Sargon and how they don't like a pairing.
movie Bob or Bob movie, what that guy? as well. That reminds me, he's someone like him, Movie Bob or Movie Something Bob, that SJW film reviewer, craps on everything, that loved the last Ghostbusters, but was a ferocious, and that's what he's complaining. Yes, but yeah, exactly. He was he was experiencing his time's critics, basically, then, which is weird. No, it's not weird. It's natural.
Well, I mean, it is natural, but I mean, again, I mean, Sargon, Baron, they have critics that don't just get off their asses. I mean, they just keep complaining and keep complaining, and it's like, don't watch and allow other people to enjoy them.
Yeah, well, stalkers do that, and Bering and Sargon and have a lot of stalkers.
Sargon Baron, Sargon Baron, Sargon Baron. Okay, I'll continue. I'll continue. It is
Exactly.
a work whose style is obvious, old-fashioned, and common, and whose subject is deliberately chosen, not because the artist has any pleasure in it, but because he thinks that the public will pay him for it. And I do think that we are going through this in modern times. It makes me think of when Andy Warski, well, before all of the blood sports things happened. When Andy Warski wanted to debate Francesca Ramsey, how he was talking to her, he was talking about how people told him. So I mean, it's hearsay, but how people told him that they do video games and they want to stop doing video games for YouTube because they do video games all the time and they want to do something new. But as soon as they try to do something new, they lose money. Or a person who do movie reviews and people watch their channel because they make great movie reviews. And as soon as they try to do something else, they lose money, they use views. And I even heard that something like that happened to Filthy Frank, where Filthy Frank tried to make a video where he is just himself and he's real with everybody. And so many people hated that. So I do agree that he says, but because he thinks the public would pay him for it, where people just they do things that they probably don't want to do anymore, but they continue to do it because that is how they make a living. And that's also what happens when you turn a hobby into a job. And I think Mr. Repson talked about that too. When first it's a hobby, but then when it's a job, it just makes you miserable, and you just start doing things for money instead of doing things because you really want to do it. Any
Uh,
thoughts on
that period of time, especially in England, it was a flourishing period for those romantic novels, and many like himself, probably under a pen name or an alias, wrote that, and he probably hated that because those romantic novels are like the romantic novels we have today, utter crap, utter bollocks, and utter rubbish. And yeah, that's what he's absolutely talking about today. And you see that even like you said, even today, many people to earn a living must do what they don't like. And again, he's talking about I should have pleasure in everything I do. I should not be able to work. Socialism. Yeah. Yeah. I should get my pay without doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yep. And I should have, and people are responsible for me having fun.
Exactly. Yes. 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 Brilliantly said, Modwain. Brilliantly said.
Thank you.
We can continue.
It comes from the barbarous conception of authority. It comes from the natural inability of a community corrupted by authority to understand or appreciate individualism. In a word, it comes from a monstrous and ignorant thing that is called public opinion, which, bad and well-meaning as it may be, it well-meaning as it is when it tries to control action, it's infamous and of an evil meaning when it tries to control thoughts or arts. And I think that this applies to modern day as well. I mean, when I look at people who try to take down Sargon of Akkad, who try to take down Bering, who don't like Sargon speaking at MidCon and try to stop him, you know.
Yes. Well, he's has every generation hates authority. And it's not from now, it's even earlier than what he's. I hated authority. My children hate authority. My grandchildren will hate authority. See what I mean?
And at the same time, we thrive in it. We need it.
Yes.
But we will constantly challenge it. We will constantly challenge our authority, but at the same time, we do thrive in it. It's basically like a wolf pack. There is a top wolf, there are lots of wolves below it, etc., etc. Everyone has their place in, that's why we call it, everyone has their place in their pecking order. And yet still, if possible, we will try to break free of our pecking order's position and go into a higher one, a higher position, preferably. But at the same time, we want to do this within the rules because we don't want it to be used against us in the future. If we do that, then we're basically talking about despotism. Most people are against despotism because it's unpredictable. We want predictability in our world, in our societies.
Only the despots like despotism. Everyone else doesn't. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's normal that we want to push forward, and it's normal that we are, how do you call it, challenging of authority. But at the same time, the challenging of authority is not meant to show rebelliousness, which is what a lot of people, or rather the willingness for anarchy, it is rebelliousness, but it's not the willing for anarchy. It's the willingness to challenge authority, to improve upon. And that's what people don't seem to understand. Children, when they grow up, are rebellious. They will go, and when you tell them they're not supposed to do something, they will do it anyway because they're kids. They're finding their boundaries, both in behavior and in what they themselves find acceptable. And how much of the scorn they will get from breaking those rules are they willing to carry? When does that scorn become too much? So they will abide by the rules more easily. And when will that scorn be worth it? So they try to stretch out the rules. They are trying to stretch out their, how do you call it?
What they can get away with is the 2 and 4 year old, 2 to 4 year olds. Yes, they try to train.
It doesn't stop. But it doesn't stop with 2 or 4 years old. You keep doing this till you die.
Exactly. But if you can, that's where you establish the, how can I say it? We have an expression. Yeah, the pecking order. No, we have an expression here. It's easier to bend a cucumber while it's young, basically. Yeah. If you see the analogy. Afterwards, forget it. It'll break.
Yeah. That's a good
or
one.
a cucumber, a tree, whatever, something that's really hard. You bend it while it's young, but you don't want to break it. You want to just bend it to become civilized.
But at the same time, we don't like authority above us. We don't like to see slaves below us.
No, yes,
we empathize.
Yeah,
and because of that, we emphasize. This is one of the reasons why we don't like it. But at the same time, we recognize the need for it. Well, we thank God recognize that there is no need for slavery, but we do recognize the need for authority. But authority should never be authoritarian, because once it's that, it becomes a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Every person should always be willing to question authority. And authority should always be willing to change and listen, if, etc., etc., etc.
Compromise, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. This is one of the few good things about Dutch politicians back in the day, and at the moment they're crap as well. But if we go back to the 60s, all of our governments were based on compromise. And everyone knew it, which then kind of made every, every government a true government of the people. You might not get everything you want, but you got something you wanted.
Yes.
We are dominated by journalism. In America, the president reigns for 4 years, and journalism governs forever and ever. Fortunately, in America, journalism has carried its authority to the grossest and most brutal extreme. As a natural consequence, it has begun to create a spirit of revolt. People are amused by it or disgusted by it, according to their temperaments. And Alicia, I think you have quite a bit to say about this.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Hashtag. Go on, Alicia.
I'm not sure. I think.
I do. I have to go at 3, but I do have a lot to say about it. It's kind of sad. I mean, realistically, it's kind of like a misconception, isn't it? I have misconceptions about what it's like on the other side of the world. And so I'm assuming he has misconceptions of what it was like here. But our media has always been bought and paid for. And for him to even think that it was real journalism because it didn't do what he's pissed off because they gossip, right? They gossip. But, what is gossip, right? What is gossip? It's information. Entertaining.
Exactly, yes.
It's entertaining. I do have to run because my daughter has karate.
Have fun.
Have fun.
I'm so sorry. This was very enlightening. I didn't realize it would take 2 hours, but all right.
Yeah, I suspected that it would probably go on for about 3 hours. I already suspected that.
Okay. Well, thank you. It was so enjoyable.
It's an
I
honor.
will talk to you all later, okay?
It's an honor,
Okay.
Alicia. See you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Do you guys want to continue? We're at 65%. We're 65% finished.
Well, yeah. I'll leave it up to you.
Exactly.
Do you guys want to continue? We're 65% finished, so we only have we don't have that far to go.
We'll do it better now if none of you are. I'm fine. It's 10 o'clock here at the night. I can do another half hour, for example.
Okay. We could go on for another half hour. What were you saying, Modwain?
I've got plenty of time.
Okay, let's try to finish again. The fact is that the public have an insatiable curiosity to know everything except that what is worth knowing with 205 highlighters. And I can imagine that there are both feminists and alt-righters and Christians who all agree with this. Because, the fact that the public have an insatiable curiosity everything except what is worth knowing. But what is worth knowing?
And that's the question.
Yeah, an intersectional feminist would think, well, feminism is worth knowing. And a person who's a white nationalist would think that their philosophy is worth knowing. And a person who is a Republican or conservative who believes that their values is worth knowing. What is worth knowing is completely subjective. It's not really objective.
Exactly. But he's decrying that everyone, all these groups that you mentioned, love gossip. See? Which gossip is that nothing that is insubsequential. Celebrity C hates celebrity X, while politician B said something nasty. That's gossip. And yes, exactly. Everyone knowledge is subjective. What you think is important is subjective. So yes.
Yeah. The private lives of men and women should not be told in public, which I do believe it reflects his own personal life, because
Yep.
he was going through a trial where he was being exposed and outed at the time. So we could see why he would think this way. But this is happening in modern times. Something like this has always been going on, because people are curious about what goes on during the lives of celebrities. Like, celebrity gossip has always been popular. Even when I
Yes.
was 5 years old, celebrity gossip has always been popular. They do not allow the details of the trials that take place in the divorce courts to be published for the amusements or the criticism of the public. And he's talking about the French here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I could say this. Oh, should I continue with the other that I have highlighted? Um, okay. There are possibly some journalists who take a real pleasure in publishing horrible things, or who, being poor, look to scandals as forming a sort of permanent basis for income. But there are other journalists, I feel certain, men of education and cultivation, who really dislike publishing these things, who know that's what's his wrong to do so, and only do it because the unhealthy conditions under which their occupation is carried, and oblige them to supply the public with what the public wants, and to compete with other journalists in making supply as full and satisfying to the gross popular appetites as possible. It's just very degrading position for anybody of educated men to be placed in, and I have no doubts that most of them feel it's acutely.
I didn't really
Um,
understand this one, to be honest.
Here he's just he's totally gone off. The socialism is awesome and utopic to everyone thing. Now he's just grieving out his petty, um, how do you say it? Petty problems that he's had with the law, with journalists, and that's where I sort of stopped reading. But yeah, on the subject of socialism, it has really nothing to do with socialism or
No,
individuality itself.
this sounds more about social engineering, to be honest.
Not
If
really.
Yeah, a little bit though, because it's that the. Can you scroll back up one, please, Ren, so I can see the beginning part? But there are generals, I feel, certain men of education and cultivation who really dislike publishing these things. That- That's an assumption.
Exactly, yeah. It's
So who knows what? Who knows that it's wrong to do, which is an assumption. You can go back to the next bit again, and
Oh,
only do it because the unhealthy conditions under which their occupation is carried on oblige them to supply the public with what the public wants. So it's assumption upon assumption upon assumption, and basically what they want is bad.
yeah. What he thinks they want is bad because it's his
Yeah, so
opinion. Yeah.
it's assumption upon assumption, and it's not really in favor or against socialism, to be honest, because that it
Nothing.
has nothing
No.
to do with it.
Exactly. Just
This is merely him complaining about how he feels that the world is turning.
how
yeah,
he's been victimized, basically.
yeah, because I mean, again, he's being outed as being gay at the time. So I mean, he was going through so many trials, and I'm pretty sure the public was eating this up. Just like, I mean, again, this is going on even now. I mean, People's Magazine is very, very popular. All of those gossip magazines are really popular. People love entertainment tonight. Um, I mean, people love gossip. I mean, Christy Winters know that if she puts Sargon or a bear ring into the title of her videos are going to get her videos are going to do very well. Her videos are going to be doing so well because it's true. If you put the name of a somewhat big person up on your YouTube channel and put them in the tags, you're going to get far more traffic than any of your other videos. Like you could be like, oh, I'm not doing so well. Let me put this big YouTuber in the name of in the title of my videos. Oh, look, now I'm getting like 5,000 views. I'm doing well now that I have a big person in the title. No.
Oh, you just exposed my business model.
I mean, I've been
It's that.
guilty of that too, but I do try to actually say something. But I have to admit, like when I did a video talking about, Andy Worski, like one of those videos almost got like 3,000 views. It's like, yeah, my video talking about Andy Worski, it's getting me like 3,000 views, well, close to it. So it's like, man, wow, that was really good.
I selfishly want to have some big names in my chat, discussions, and I think they've been absolutely awesome. With Sargon, we had a chat last year about the Egyptians. Not so long ago, Skeptor and Goodfella. Oh, that was to me was one of my most enjoyable chats. And even before when I started with Tim Blake, I think one of my another of my best streams, me talking with him, and he forgets about that. We talk nicely. I do attack him on Tim Blake on Twitter. I'm changing the subject, but it'll be very, very. But yes, it's a model of that the attention-seeking type thing. Nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with putting a big person's name in the title of your videos because you want more traffic. Before you could just do re and have the the colon and then put the same title
Yeah.
and still get traffic. I mean, when you make YouTube videos, obviously you want to drive traffic into your channel, and there's nothing wrong with that. For
Nope.
example, if somebody wanted to like it would be nice that, for example, I would love to be so big that a person puts my name in the like title of like their videos because they wanted traffic into like their channel, but my name isn't big enough.
I hope you I honestly hope you do get big and so on. I'm honored to have big people like you. To me, you are big people. No sarcasm, no nothing. Honestly, see
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah, but I do have to agree with what was said in Philip DeFranco's channel, where it seems like drama does better than an intellectual discussion. Like right now, we're having an intellectual discussion, so I don't think it's going to do all that well. It will probably do well if we start yelling and screaming at each other and throw slurs at each other. But I like this intellectual discussion, though.
The Romans basically started the concept of bread and entertainment to keep the masses in check.
Yeah,
So
but people,
that's what the internet drama, blood sports, and so on. That it is basically without the bread, but it's the circuses, bread and circus.
Indeed.
yeah, but people actively seek it though. Like people
Of course they
love
do.
it. People love a dumpster fire because again, intellectual videos, they don't do as well. Like if you just do a video that is really intellectual and whatnot, it's not going to do as well as a video that's a talking about people. For example, I did a book review on The Picture of Dorian Gray, and at the time it only got 10 views. However, I did a video on Andy Worski, and it's like almost at 3,000 views at this point, almost at 3,000.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, gossip and drama does sell, but It's a short-lived phenomenon. People
I need
get
to
reinvent themselves.
reinvent my channel. Yeah, I need to go into that.
Yeah, exactly, and you'll see they're beginning. They haven't grown. They've stopped basically. Yeah, they get. Oh, I have 100. I have 25 new subscribers. I have 200 subscribers. Yeah, so they stopped. Basically, they've stopped.
Mm.
I'm fine with them, by the way. Good for them that they make money. Obviously, it's pure capitalism. I like capitalism, but they have to. It's not. I haven't found a channel of an archaeology that has more than 20,000 subscribers. So
I mean, but it is true. I mean, people know that the recipe is to success is to find some really, really stupid people and to laugh at them. I mean, there are people who manage to be really successful on YouTube by Googling like stupid tweets and reading stupid tweets out loud and making fun of them.
like that program Jackass.
Mm-hmm.
It's the lowest common denominator again.
I think it's also because people like feeling smarter than other people. Also, people probably like it when people make fools of themselves.
Exactly, because they feel superior. Yeah, absolutely. No argument there.
The thing that stops them, it must be said again, is the desire to exercise authority over the artist and over the works of art. I think we all agree with that.
He's still complaining about his critics there. That's what I felt.
Made them for his own pleasure and has never asked the public what they wanted, has never cared to know what they wanted, has never allowed the public to dictate to him or influence him in any way, but has gone on intensifying his own personality and producing his own individual work. At first, none came. That did not matter. Then a few came. That did not matter. Then many have come. Now he's still the same. He is an incomparable novelist. Yeah, I think I could get what he's saying. I mean, he wants to be himself. He just wants to be himself. It doesn't matter like if he could get 0 views or 0 attention or a lot of attention. He just wants to be fully himself. And if he could be fully himself and nobody, likes it, that's fine. And if you really like what he has to say, he, that's great too. I think that as a YouTuber, like if he lived in in a modern day sense, if he was a YouTuber, he would be the type of person who does YouTube as a hobby, just YouTube as an outlet to speak his mind. And if he gets like no views, like he'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine, I got no views, but I'm gonna still speak my mind. However, if he gets a lot of views, he's not going to care. He's still going to speak his mind.
I disagree, though. I think he would be someone in a mix of a lot of SJW, someone like Anita Sarkeesian with Chrissy Winters, with who else? With Anisian, for example, someone like that. That's how I feel that Oscar Wilde would be if he was a modern day YouTuber.
I don't know, because of what he said right here, producing his own individual work. At first, no one came. That did not matter. Then a few came. That did not matter. Then many came now, and he's still the same. So I imagine that he would be the person who would just be himself, whether he gets 0 views or whether he gets a lot of views.
It'd be sort of like a Logan Paul type character. Honestly, that's how I feel Oscar Wilde would be if he was a modern day equivalent YouTuber.
He doesn't seem, how do you call this, morally uprighteous or morally straight. I think he will go where popularity will bring him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. When he wrote the picture of Dorian Gray, he didn't. Then again, I don't live in the 1800s, so I don't know the common feelings towards Black people. But he didn't write Black people in a negative light, but he did mention Black people in the word.
Oh,
He briefly mentioned Black people in the picture of Dorian Gray. It was very brief, and he just normalized Black people.
you recognize their existence. Yeah, in Europe in the late 19th century, it wasn't that racist, to be honestly. It would beginning to come slightly later. They were more anti-Semitic than actual racist because they had the notion, especially the Enlightenment class, the academics and bourgeoisie, and that of the noble savage. After 150 years of slavery in the Americas, because in Europe slavery was abolished much earlier, uh, and in the early 1800s in most countries of Europe, and so they did not hold much. They sort of held a more paternalistic view towards the black people, but anti-Semitism was the height of racism in Europe. So
Actually,
yeah.
when reading the picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde didn't seem to hate the Jews. Like for example, when it comes to Lord Henry, he enjoyed talking to the Jewish person who was working at the nightclub where he met Syllable Vane.
Oh yes, in the UK, France, were the slightly less anti-Semitic than, say, the Iberian Peninsula, the Eastern Europe, Southern Eastern Europe, and Germany was a bit mixed. I don't really. It came a bit later, especially in the early after World War One. Real heavy anti-Semitism because they were just beaten the shit out of by the Allies in World War One. And so, yeah, no, there wasn't really that much, but there was more in the enlightened countries, the super highly advanced countries, France, Germany, the UK, and America. Anti-Semitism was bubbling, but well, not the Americas, but in the UK and that it wasn't that pronounced. No, it did become more emphasized later, obviously. Yes.
No one accepted the authority of public opinion, and now it's just almost impossible to enter any modern house without seeing some recognition of good taste, some recognition. Okay, basically, in short, I mean, he's basically talking about, like when a person is a busybody, they ruin things. But when people are free to engage in artistic expression, things evolve, kind of like, I don't know, like when people, he's implying, applying arts when it comes to furniture and interior decoration, when it with the arts of writing a novel, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, things that people don't be busybodies towards would be kind of like technology and electronics. People just let scientists do their thing. They don't go and try to be a busybody and tell scientists how to do their job, and therefore we have cool cell phones, cool computers. We have all of this technology, but because people don't go around tell scientists how to do their jobs, and he's saying that with interior decorating, we have all of these stylish homes and stylish interior decorating because you don't tell people how to do it. So the
Mm-hmm.
best tends to emerge. But when it comes to, entertainments and arts, people want to be busybodies. People would want to wag their fingers and say, don't do art like this, do that art like that. And people, want to have so much input that they could ruin a good work. That's what he's saying in shorts.
Yep.
I guess everybody agrees with him. Okay.
I agree with your analysis of it. Yeah.
To me,
Oh.
it's just another great example of, hey, look at how entitled I am.
Yeah.
When I disagree with the public opinion, things are bad. When I agree with it, things are good. It's just another. To me, it's just another rant of privilege, of entitlement.
Actually, I think we say the same thing nowadays. That's if you allow the internet to be free, like YouTube to be free, then the best opinions would naturally rise to the top, and the worst opinions would fall down to the bottom.
Yeah, well, that's because sunlight is the best disinfectant. But that's not really how I read it. It's more like he decides what he feels is good, and therefore that public is doing it is good. And now it's almost impossible to enter any modern house without seeing some recognition of good taste. That's a value judgment. Some recognition of the value of lovely surrounding. That's a value judgment. Some sign of appreciation of beauty. That's a value judgment. It's all value judgments. Who is he to judge? This is, to me, this is pure entitlement. This is basically the social justice narrative.
Mhm.
I think it's good, therefore it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we would have to agree to disagree with it, disagree there on how we interpret what he had to say. The form of government that is most suitable to the artist is no government at all. So I guess in this day he would be an anarcho-communist.
No,
Authority
he would be
over
an
him.
anarchist, not an anarcho-communist. He's an anarchist in this case.
Mm.
What makes it communistic? The form of government that is most suitable for the artist is no government at all. Authority over him and his art is ridiculous. But even in a community, you will have people speaking out of what they do and do not like.
Yeah, but isn't he against private property? That's why I thought he would be an anarcho-communist, but I guess I could
No,
be wrong.
this bit is just about anarchy. This is not about communism or capitalism. This is just about anarchy. The form of government that is most suitable to the artist is no government at all, which is communism. Which is
Anarchy.
Anarchy. Yeah. Fucking hell, I'm breaking my own words. So basically, it's all about anarchy. This line is only about anarchy. It's not about any other form of. This is just anarchy. There should be no government at all. Okay, well, that's
Well,
anarchy.
it is called the soul of man under socialism. So he does like socialism, though. So
Yeah, but that's not what he's saying
anarcho-socialist.
in this line. This line is merely claiming that no government at all.
Hmm.
Even within communism, you have a form of government.
I do, but it's because that's what it turns out as. Because of humans, we humans can't be anarchists, basically, unless you're a hunter-gatherer, obviously.
Hmm. There are three kinds of despots. There are the despots who tyrannize over the body. There's the despot who tyrannizes over the soul. There is the despot who tyrannizes over the soul and body alike. The first is called the prince. The second is called the pope. The third is called the people. Any thoughts on that?
Well,
And
that's basically
100 and 151 highlights. So a lot of people agree with this line. I wonder why so many people agree with it. I don't know.
I don't know either. But
You know?
the thing I do find funny is that what he's here saying is the people are the despots that try to rule body and soul, or the tyrannies that try to rule body and soul.
He's contradicting socialism, his earlier assertions of the socialism at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it's because he was under trial for being gay. So, I mean, with all of the trial he was going through for being outed as gay, he probably was tired of all of the judgments he received.
Well, understandable.
Yep.
But that kind of also means that he is against the people.
Which is socialism is one of the core tenets of socialism. The people. Proletariat. Which he sort of highlighted at the beginning of his essay. The most noble people are the poor people. But now they are judging me because of my quote unquote deviant acts. And now they are not good people. Sort of. Basically.
Double dink.
Double think?
Yeah, double think, exactly. They are good as long as they agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to be noted that individualism does not come to men with a sickly cunts about duty, which merely means doing what other people want because they want it, or any hideous cunts about self-sacrifice, which is merely a survival of savage mutilation. In fact, it does not come to men with any claim upon him at all. It has been pointed out that one of the results of extraordinary tyranny of authority is that words are absolutely distorted from their proper and simple meaning. I do think that words are being changed to the word racist. Racist is now prejudice plus power now. Extraordinary tyranny of authority is the words are absolutely distorted from their proper simple meaning, like racist, and are used to express the obverse of their right signification.
I honestly don't know what he's talking about there. I can't.
Well, for me, I tend to apply it in a modern day context. And for me, the very first thing that made me think of is how the left says racism is prejudice plus power, and we're kind of like, what,
Well, yeah, they use it, but once you say, okay, so Robert Mugabe is racist against the whites. Oh no, no, no. The modern day lefties are very inconsistent. They more than him, in fact.
Yeah, more than him. But in all fairness, the term racist was meant to disparage Western society.
Yes.
It's basically a communistic word tool, or a critical theory word tool. And we stupid that we fall for it, that we use it. And it's not only a word tool that it found its origin in critical theory and communism, but it's also a word tool that they re-established time and again by giving new meaning to it, whilst at the same time claiming that no, we didn't change anything.
Yeah.
Selfishness is not living as one wishes to live. It's just asking others to live as one wishes to live. I totally agree. And unselfishness is letting other people's lives alone and not interfering with them. Selfishness always aims at creating around it's an absolute uniformity of type. And I do. As long as a person isn't a criminal or committing a violent crime, I do think that people should be free to be themselves. A man who does not think for himself does not think at all. It is grossly selfish to require of one's neighbor that he should think in the same way and hold the same opinions. Why should he? If he can think, he would probably think differently. That is That is absolutely truthful.
Yeah, it's a nice bunch of doublethink because he's contradicting himself from a few thingies back. And actually, he's contradicting himself from the line above. Selfishness is not living as one wishes to live. It is asking others to live as one wishes to live. So basically, if I ask you to live how I want you to live, I'm being selfish. So he's basically redesigning the word selfish.
Like
Because
modern, yeah.
yeah, because that's not what selfishness means. Selfishness, doing things you want to do because you want it, not asking you to do things for me. That's something else. That's authoritarian.
No, he's saying that honest selfishness is letting other people's lives alone. He's saying that other people should live their lives the way they want to live. That's what I'm
Yeah, but
getting from it.
the second part, the unselfishness, is letting other people live their lives alone. Yeah, fair enough. You can call that unselfish. I wouldn't, because it has nothing to do with being selfish, because selfishness is about me, not about you.
Yep.
If I'm selfish, it's about me.
Well, he said unselfish, you and selfish. So he says what's being unselfish is to let people do what they want, leaving other people's lives alone.
But where he starts, selfishness is not living as one wishes to live. That's rubbish. It's asking others to live as one wishes to live. That's utter rubbish. That's not selfishness. That's authoritarian.
Yeah, yeah. Selfishness is self. That's where
Yeah.
the root of the word comes from.
Yeah, but I think he's using like an arts. He's using that word artistically. That's what I think he's trying to do.
Well, then I'm curious how he would use this artistically, because I don't see how selfishness is not living as one wishes to live. That's the whole meaning of the word selfishness. If someone is selfish, he's not talking about how you should live your life. He's telling you how he is living his life.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's just using some abstract definition of the word because it's kind of like when I was going to an Episcopal church and they were saying like God is light and God is sound and God is a technicolor rainbow. I think he's trying to apply his own meaning to it, his own, from how he sees things. And hanging
Which makes
on
him a social justice warrior. Sorry.
It does.
Well,
you,
it
you
does,
know
because he's changing meanings of words to suit his message. If you're
actually he
correct.
actually the weird part is he just got through condemning it as well. Like
But obvious.
we just got through reading him complaining about changing the meanings of words. Now he's changing the meanings of word, something he spoke out against not that long ago.
He's not very consistent. I've noticed it when I read that. He does say one thing and then he goes about basically contradicting himself or arguing against himself.
Yeah, he is kind of. This is the one thing that I found most astonishing. This is not something I had anticipated or thought would be possible, but this piece is so full of doublespeak.
It
It amazed me that people thought this was a brilliant piece.
I do think it's still nice to talk about though. I mean, because it gets the conversation started though. So he's still getting a conversation started from beyond the grave because the
All right.
conversation is the most important thing.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But when I started reading it, or I mean, I didn't read a lot of Oscar Wilde, so I'm not going to pretend I knew a lot about him.
Me neither. Yeah.
But I always heard how he was a good writer, a smart man, a thinker. But then when I read this, I'm like, this is an 18-year-old high school student's tripe. It's so full of doublethink. It's so full of self-contradictory text. I can't believe this.
Yeah, but wasn't he young when he written this? I mean, how old
Maybe.
was he when he written this? I don't think he was that old.
Well, it's very possible that he was young. That's not the point.
He could have been brilliant for his time period, though. I mean, like he did live in the
No.
1800s. So in that particular time period, he could have been a very brilliant man,
He
even
could
if
have been
he.
a brilliant man, but this text definitely doesn't show that. And there were lots of other brilliant men in this time. In this
Oh
time.
yes.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
in all fairness, if I'm purely measuring him on this text, he's not a brilliant man. I'm sorry. And there are people from this time frame that are brilliant men.
Mm. When man has realized individualism, he will also realize sympathy and exercise it freely, spontaneously. Up to the present, man has hardly cultivated sympathy at all. He has merely sympathy with pain, and sympathy with pain is not the highest form of sympathy. All sympathy is fine, but sympathy with suffering is the least fine mode. It's tainted with egotism. There is in a certain elements of terror of our own safety, we become afraid that we ourselves might be as the leper or the blind, and no man would care for us. Anybody can sympathize with the suffering of a friend, but it requires a fine nature. It requires, in fact, the nature of a true individualist to sympathize with a friend's success. Don't be a hater. In the modern stress of competition and struggle for place, such sympathy is naturally rare, and it is also very much stifled by a moral idea of uniformity and a type of conformity to rule, which is so prevalent everywhere.
I want to ask a moment of time to respond to Real Raven in the chat.
Okay.
Selfish partners and parents will expect their kids and husbands to conform to their standard selfishly. I'm sorry, Real Raven, but that's not correct. Then you are confusing selfish and authoritarian ones. And selfish and authoritarian are not the same word. Now, if someone is selfish and he wants people to conform to him, he is both selfish and authoritarian. But it doesn't automatically happen that someone who is selfish will automatically also be authoritarian. So if we're talking about people who are authoritarian, then yes, that's the behavior we will see. If we talk about people who are selfish, that's not necessarily the behavior we will see. So I think I'm not being dense. I think you're confusing words. Authoritarian is not the method of selfishness. So selfishness may be the motivation, but then everything can be the motivation for authoritarianism. If you're selfish and you're authoritarian, then yeah, you can be controlling. If you're authoritarian and you deem yourself to be a good person, you can still be controlling, but do so out of the goodness of your own heart. That's not the point. The point is, if you're talking about someone who's being selfish, then you cannot automatically assume that they must also be authoritarian, because not every person that is selfish is automatically authoritarian.
How can
If
you
you
be a
claim,
selfless authoritarian, though?
because if I'm, well, you can, because
It's
you can.
possible to be a selfless authoritarian. I don't think I've
That's
ever
the
heard
whole
of
concept of socialism. We have to do things selflessly for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but socialism always fails when it's put into practice, though, because it's too idealistic.
Well, that's true when it won't work, but the core values of socialism, even though they will always fail because they are authoritarian, are at parts selfless. Because you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for society.
Mm.
Or at least that's how they wrap it up, which never actually happens because politicians under socialism always become very rich. but that's a different one.
Yes, they did.
Oh,
Anyway, can we sort of wrap this up, people?
oh, we already have. That's the last of my notes.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, that's the last of my notes. So do either of you guys have anything more to say at all?
No, that was. I just wanted to say that was a awesome chat we had today. An awesome conversation. A very, very good conversation. I'm thank you, Rick, thank you.
It was a
So
great. I'm
okay,
sorry, I was a little bit late.
Yeah,
it's okay. So let's do final words then. Let's start with you, Carlos. You give final words and talk about your YouTube channel. You can talk about your YouTube channel as much as you want.
well, my channel is basically archaeology. I do it every Monday. That's always sacred, and then another sometimes like I did it yesterday, and I might do it Friday, so on like that. Yeah. Wrapping up Oscar Wilde, putting him into historical context. Marxism was just beginning. It was still a theory. It was still an untried utopic ideology that was being developed. People of today, the bourgeoisie, the intellectualentia, and the upper middle class and upper middle class, etc., were bored as hell. They were guilty of all their affluence and all their good things they had. So yeah, many of them embraced it, while others didn't embrace it and just kept Western civilization bettering itself. So yeah, that's my final words. And I didn't know about this on Oscar Wilde. I thought he is a good, brilliant writer, but in political wise, he's very naive. I felt. Yeah. But
Okay, and Modwain, last words.
Well, I enjoyed the stream. It was a very good stream, actually. A lot of people should take the time to listen to this one. But then again, they will only hear that after I said it at the end, so that's not useful. But
I mean, you're free to share it all over social media. You are free to share it on Minds, share it on GitHub AI, share it on Twitter. Tell your
I've
friends
already
about
done that. I haven't shared it on Minds yet, but I've already.
me neither.
shared it
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a great topic, and it's kind of funny to see that what Oscar Wilde was doing is kind of what Animal Farm was all about. It's be wary of the doublespeak.
Yeah,
And this is
but
what 1984 was about as well. Be wary of the doublespeak.
yeah,
And
but those were written long after Oscar Wilde was dead, weren't they? I mean, because socialism was new-ish in Oscar Wilde day, and he doesn't know what we know now, and we don't know if present day knowledge would have changed his opinion.
I don't think he was about doublespeak. He just was contradicting himself. It's a new concept that just beginning. So he didn't think it through.
It wasn't called doublespeak back then, but basically what he is doing is doublespeak.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't a term for it when he did it, but that doesn't change the fact that this is what he did, because he talks about one end of his ideology and then turns it around and suddenly starts advocating for the other side.
Exactly.
Which is understandable, but this is one of the main issues I think we have in our current society. People don't have principles anymore. It's an old joke. Hell, unfortunately, I can say this is an old joke, because there is this old joke that this is what I stand for, and if you don't agree with me, I can change my opinion.
Yeah.
This is the final line in the sand, and if you go over it, I'll have another final line in the sand. The lack of ideology, of principles, is unfortunately destroying us.
Yep.
I think it's because this idea is still kind of fresh and people haven't really challenged it, and I don't think the idea has been applied yet. So
That's not really true though, because in all fairness, Marxism might have written it, but Marxism wasn't the first to think that a concept like socialism was a good idea. The Romans had already tried it and failed. Because that's what the end of the Roman Empire was all about.
really,
Socialism, feeding the people. Yeah, really.
I thought that the fall of the Roman Empire had to do with adding in lots of new slaves to take the place of the workers, and I thought it had to do with. I thought that Christianity, the introduction of Christianity, had something to do with the fall of
Christianity and socialism do have a lot of things in common, unfortunately, and this is something that a lot of people don't always recognize. That doesn't mean that Christianity in itself is bad or socialism in itself is bad, but what people make of it turns out to be bad. And what we saw in the Roman Empire, for example, and I know history is a little bit of my interest, so to speak, but what we saw in the Roman Empire was that companies or people with companies had to stop them because they couldn't afford them anymore. So they went bankrupt, and then they went to the cities, because in the cities, the government would provide food for them. This is even one of the sayings: give them food and games, and the populace will be satisfied. And that's what socialism is too. Give them food and games, and
wait a
they'll be
minute.
satisfied.
Wait, that's bread and circuses. And I thought that the purpose of bread and circuses was much more keep society distracted so that he could do all the shits he wants to do and gets away with it scot-free.
And one of the things that he did was he destroyed the middle class and the working class people. And how did he do that? By feeding them. And suddenly taxes were so high that people couldn't even pay them in their own Roman coin. In the end of the West Roman Empire, people had to pay their taxes in gold. The average worker could not afford that. But the Roman, how was it called? Sestertian? No, not Sestertian. What was the Roman coin? I forgot.
Sestertian.
Yeah? Okay, then I was right.
I think. I don't know. I'm just.
I can't remember. I'm really bad with words, with names. I'm sorry.
I'm bad with history.
In the end, the coinage of the Roman Empire had deflated so much that the value was nearly destroyed. That's why people weren't allowed to pay taxes in the original coin. They had to pay it in gold. So what happened was that a lot of farmers sold their farm to big farmers who then hired, or didn't even hire people. They brought in slaves to work the farms, and the farmers that used to work the farms went to the cities where they got bread and games. And in the end, this destroyed the Roman Empire. And kind of funny because this happened in the West, but in the East Roman Empire, they did not allow this to happen. Because there they stayed with the old system. This is one of the reasons why the Roman Empire split. That was even before the West Roman Empire fell. Because they didn't want to have the same shit as the West Roman Empire was bringing upon himself. And it wasn't the influx of slavery or the influx of foreigners. It was the influx of basically government handouts.
Wait a minute. Mama, I'm glad you brought this up. Do you think the same thing would happen with the United States? Because California is so crazy. I mean, California is so absurd.
Look at California. California in itself is like what? The 8th or 9th economy in the world. That's how big it is.
It was.
And
I don't know if it still is.
Well, it's constantly getting smaller, I know. But it's running a huge deficit. And why is it running a huge deficit? Because it's paying for basically the poor. By doing so, they are inviting more poor people to come. and the people who work have to pay for it. By doing so, they're forcing the people who work for it to leave. In California, you have an exodus of the middle class. Even though the middle class in America has been dwindling already, in California, it's dwindling faster because people are actually leaving. Why are they leaving? Because they cannot afford to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too much taxes.
Unfortunately, they keep asking for it though because California keeps going blue. It's like they keep wanting it. Like I don't know. They seem to be incapable of making good decisions. I mean, that sounds really, really rude, but it's like they just keep asking for. Like why not go red and why? Because it's like to hear these sad stories like, oh my goodness, we got to let all of these immigrants in. We got to feel sorry for the immigrants. And, a lot of them have free food and free shelter. Everything should be free, which is a nice, it's a nice idea, but it's bad in practice. I could
But that's
understand
the thing,
feelings.
though. It can only be nice. It can only be free as long as someone is paying the bill. So who's paying the bill? And so far, California has been paying the bill and then trying to get the money back during the tax rounds. And this is why a lot of middle class people and not the super wealthy. The super wealthy won't mind because they know ways to deal with not having to pay too much. But the middle class is leaving California. Why are they leaving? Because they don't have the ways to trick the government. And in the end, this is the death knell of California. If they don't change this around, if they don't stop their sanctuary state nonsense, if they don't stop giving the people food and games whilst waiting for the richer people, the middle class, to pay for it, if they don't stop that, they will have no middle class left at all. And in the end, they can't sustain themselves and they will crumble. I merely hope that the rest of America won't fall for this.
Yeah,
Well, I think it has to. They have to let California fail. They have to give an example.
No, the American people can't do much about it. The American government can't do much about it. Let them fail. Yeah, let them fail. In all fairness, look at Venezuela. It used to be, almost a Western country. Now it's one of the poorest countries in the world.
Yeah.
What has changed?
Yeah, like for me, I just wouldn't mind if, California became its own state and separated from the rest of the United States.
Yeah, it would be a good thing for the rest of America, to be honest. Build a wall around the border.
It won't last a decade.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if we could build a wall and keep California out, of the rest of the United States, because the people from California, they're crazy.
Mm-hmm. They are.
I'm hoping Belgium becomes the example of Europe. That no one wants to follow. The Islamic parties in Belgium are getting big and a lot. And I wish they'd introduce Sharia law in Belgium.
They've already introduced Sharia law in Belgium. There are several places in Belgium where they are.
Yeah, but that's the no-go zones. Yeah, that's the no-go zones. But I mean,
but those no-go zones are pretty big. We're talking about areas like Molenbeek. Come on.
But I'm talking about the whole country. And
I hope it doesn't happen, but yeah.
No, I hope it does happen. Honestly, I am.
They're next door to me. I don't want it.
It'll wake up everyone else.
I hope so.
Yeah, I do hope so, because I just do hope that when we look at countries that fail or states that fail, I do hope that it could be a wake-up call for everybody else.
Yeah, just like California is a wake-up call for the rest of America, but at this moment, no one wants to understand the wake-up call. I mean, you have people defecating in the streets. And I'm not talking about illegal immigrants either. Yeah, okay, of course there are illegal immigrants who are doing that. No, there are actual American citizens defecating in the streets because they don't have a place to live. They can't live in their car because that now is outlawed. They can't live in a tent because that's now is outlawed. They can't collect rainwater because that now is outlawed. Come on, land of the free, yeah, land of the dreaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think we have too many laws.
We do have too many laws.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Sticks with that. I mean, he says that we need to get rid of like 90% of our laws, and I could agree with that.
Basically, we need to go back to the do's and don't laws, common sense laws.
Yeah, like
How did you used to call them?
Sure, like violent crime should be illegal.
Yep. Crime should be illegal. Doing harm to people should be illegal. Yeah, but I didn't know that dropping these toxics in this water would do harm. Yeah, you bloody well did, and even if you didn't, it's still illegal. That's the extent. Laws are only there to protect the people. You're not allowed to collect rainwater. Why not? Because we say so. Well, fuck that. That's no argument. You're not allowed to go off grid. Well, you are allowed to go off grid, but then you have to pay extra for it. Why? You're not allowed to sleep in your car. Well, I'd rather not, but tell me why I'm not allowed to. I mean, it's my car.
Yep.
There's,
Okay, guys, I'm going to leave now. It was wonderful. And I'm honored, Rin. Thank you for inviting me. I'm always available if you want. I'd love talking to you. I always love talking to you. You and everyone, basically. I love talking to people. So thank you again, Rin.
I am so glad that all of you. I'm so glad that all of you came. You, Modwain, Alicia, and be sure to subscribe to all of their channels. And be sure to follow all of them on Twitter and Minds. Anyway, bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.